Last we spoke of Neuvillette, I did battle with what felt like 1,000 zhongli and raiden A mains just to arrive to the same conclusion of the video, which is that Neuvillette is stronger than all the Archons, and as such has the means necessary to judge them. But what exactly is he judging them for? Really think about this question, because it isn't as simple as it appears, and it doesn't help that Neuvillette's attitude on the subject seems to change at any given moment, but I could be wrong here and I'll tell you why. When Neuvillette first spoke of judging the usurpers, he says this:
"The time that I have spent living among the citizens of Fontaine and traveling with you has transformed my views. Even though before this I had pardoned the sins of humanity long ago, I can promise you that my future judgments will not cause any harm to the common folk. That being said, my grievances with the usurpers have yet to be settled. They owe a debt of blood that shall not be forgotten."
Guys, a debt of blood? Those aren't exactly peacemaking words, you know. We're more treading the path of Malcolm X here than we are of MLK. You know, I think Thor said something similar to this to Kratos after he blasted that nigga into the stratosphere.
About time. I've been waiting for this. You're not from here. We got a tradition called blood payments. It means I get a piece of you for what you took from my family.
I mean, historically, a debt of blood was most used during feudal times, and it was quite simply, you killed or harmed something near and dear to me, so I'm taking something from you, and more often than not, that meant the offender's life. This would then spark a never-ending cycle of vengeance-soaked violence that wouldn't ever really end. So by using the phrase debts of blood, you can see the seriousness behind the words of Neuvillette. He's seeking retribution as a survivor of the dragon race. So from this point of view, he's not so much judging them as he is passing down a judgment. Their culpability has long since been established as the evidence is all around us. However, so far as we know, the Archons had nothing to do with this. Well, yes, I suppose they play privy to the system by receiving the stolen authority of the elements. They never actually vanquished the Archons as the book puts it. So here's what I think. When Neuvillette uses the term usurpers, it's all-encompassing, used to refer to anyone that contributes to the system set up by the heavenly principles, which the Archons do. They play a willing role in a system that was built on the usurping of the dragon race, of which we know some of the sovereigns died fighting against. However, when Neuvillette uses the term debts of blood, I believe who he's actually referring to are the gods that fought against his kin. That being the Four Shades, and the Primordial One, a progenitor god hailing from beyond the stars. We know he wants to judge the latter, especially given he claims it's his final destiny to do so. It's these 5 individuals that precipitated the vanquishing of the sovereigns, killed his Dragon King, brought ruin to the world they stole, wiped out countless nations with these meaningless prophecies, wreaks havoc on humanity in an attempt to save it. And their greatest sin? Throwing the beings they created and cherished into an open-air prison where they must be content to exist, but not to live.
If you too find yourself subject to grave injustice, yet bound by rules that are twisted and warped, you must be willing to step up and right those wrongs. If you cannot break free from the eggshell, the world is not but a prison where you are blinded and confined. Do not be afraid of bleak desolation and poverty outside the prison, and do not fret about your stable rations being cut off once the prison is destroyed. Outside that world, I will always be waiting for you.
And obviously, I'm still Celestia's #1 supporter, and I could easily refute all these claims, easily, but, you know, I'm playing devil's advocate and seeing it from Neuvillettes' eyes, no matter how blinded by vengeance they are. But blood debts aside, Neuvillette has made it clear he is absolutely not against using force against the Archons should it come to that. But again, what's he judging them for? Receiving stolen goods? It can't be as black and white as that, and we know this based on his comments of venti.
"I shall fulfill my vow to judge all of the 7 in turn, even if the sky should fall and the ground give way. As the recipient of the authority of Animo, the god of breeze and hope must also stand trial." He spends most of his time being a harmless drunkard. Well, even so, I must meet him for myself and proceed from there.
Neuvillette's reaction to Venti is interesting. It tells us a lot. He was caught completely off guard by the fact that the Animo Archon is a harmless drunkard. He then sighs and says, even so, I must meet him for myself and proceed from there. It almost sounds like judging Venti has lost all meaning for him. And if that's the case, then I think it's a pretty safe guess that what he's judging the Archons for is their use of the stolen elemental authorities. He wants to judge how his kin's powers are being used, and it doesn't seem like he's indicating he wants to take it back like I previously assumed. Despite being a sovereign, Neuvillette cares for humanity. I mean, thanks to Thosalors, he even wound up forgiving their sins, so with that being the case, it would make sense that he'd like to ensure his race's powers are not being used to harm the common folk or for other nefarious intent. Now, these 7 Archons won their authorities, and he wants to see how they're being used. So with that said, it's time to judge some fucking Archons. The Animo Archon Barbados, also known as the God of Breeze and Hope, one of the original 7 who participated in the Archon War, has long since left his people. But not out of apathy, but for love. His refusal to rule over the people of Mondstadt has not only left him virtually powerless, but also helped to establish Mondstadt as the nation of freedom. Barbados would only directly intervene in Mondstadt's state of affairs twice. The first was to help free the people from the oppressive rule of the Aristotle and corrupt Lawrence clan, and the second was to summon Dvalin to protect Mondstadt from the Black Dragon during the Cataclysm. As such, I believe the Animo Archon to be found not guilty. The Geo-Archon Morax, also known as the God of History, is also one of the 7 who fought in the original Archon War. And I'm going to be completely honest, not much is known about his rule. I mean, at one point, it seemed like he was a hands-on god, but then, like, devolved into a I appear once a year god, and then just decided to retire. I mean, he didn't harm the people, and only decided to retire once he felt they were self-sufficient enough by observing if they could defeat an ancient god. I mean, had they failed, of course, he would have stepped in, so it's not like he just threw him into the deep end and just went, swim, nigga! As such, I guess the God of Gold is to be found not guilty? I don't know. Now, moving right along to the Electro Archon Beelzebub, also known as Her Excellency, the Almighty Narukami Agosho God of Thunder. While one of the gods who fought in the Archon War, she would not ascend to the position of Archonhood, but rather her twin did. A willingly sacrificed her body to make it happen, thinking Makoto would be the best. Why the fuck did I just say her? A willingly sacrificed her body, thinking Makoto would be the best fit Archon. Once Makoto became an Archon, she remade A's body and let her serve as her Kage Musha. Makoto would later die during the Cataclysm, leaving A to act as the Archon. Something that would prove to be an interesting decision. A would almost immediately nope out of being the Archon, destroyed her body once more, made a puppet, put her mind into a sword, placed herself into the plane of Euthymia, also sealing herself away from all earthly responsibilities. This wound up in the inevitable corruption of the puppet, who would then enact the Vision Hunt Decree, stripped people of their visions, personally, mind you, making a whole fucking spectacle of this shit. It's like we're in the dark ages of Europe, people gathering around to watch an execution. Yeah, he's about to get his vision snatched! Anyway, people who lost their vision during the hunt essentially became lobotomized versions of themselves, losing all their drive, ambition, and even some of their memories. This decree would then spark a civil war in Inazuma that would only end after the Traveler and Miko intervened. And keep in mind, this all happened with her not only being aware, but agreeing with it!
If so, then you underestimate me. I am quite well informed about the Vision Hunt Decree. Not so. Only everything that pertains to eternity. The Vision Hunt Decree has my tacit approval. The Fatui's actions thus far do not constitute a threat to eternity. Otherwise, they would have been purged long ago. Individual ambition is inherently incompatible with eternity. What you might not realize is that all too often, people have far more to lose by chasing their dreams. Consider this. No one will lose their life on account of having their vision taken away. Rather, those who have lost their lives are the ones who insisted on pursuing their own aspirations. Are they not?
Yeah, no, guilty. As soon as Neuvillette hears this horse shit, he's smiting this bitch from the nth dimension. As for the Danjo Archon, do I even... Bro, he didn't... Not guilty. Current Archons aside, there is one Archon in particular I did want to bring up. the Cryo-Archon, also known as the God of Love, because there is one little known fact we know about her thanks to Dainsleif.
She is a god with no love left for her people, nor do they have any left for her. Her followers hope only to be on her side when the day of her rebellion against the divine comes at last.
She is a god with no love left for her people. I'd be interested in seeing the people's living conditions in Snezhnaya, and am curious to see if she has cast them aside in pursuit of her rebellion, because it sounds like something has happened to cause great disdain between the people of Snezhnaya and the Cryo-Archon, but the question is, what? Given the statement suggests they no longer have love for one another, it's probably safe to assume her change in attitude occurred right after the Cataclysm. Would Neuvillette overlook the mistreatment of humans in pursuit of overthrowing the heavenly principles? Who knows?